Greeting, family. Greeting. This is the Force Factor again. And tonight we have an amazing guest. I am so excited to have on our platform tonight Dr. Milgraum. Thank you, Doc, for being here. Can you
It's my
please also
pleasure to join you.
same here? Doc, can you please yourself and explain your specialty to us?
Okay, I'm a licensed psychologist in the state of Maryland. And as a psychologist, I deal with all sorts of mental and emotional issues and problems. And as they're applied to either helping people solve those problems, understand their needs, or sometimes, as we get to in court cases, it's sometimes very useful to have a psychological evaluation. So I use the expertise of psychology to help in all those situations.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Milgram. So, as a licensed psychologist, I know that you also are specialized in psychological evaluations for immigration cases. So, can you please tell us a little bit more, like when is a good time to actually request your services in that department?
There are a few different types of situations in which a psychological evaluation can make a huge difference in someone's immigration case. These days, the one that I'm seeing most often is uh, when someone is about to become a citizen. They follow the papers, and usually, if you have to become a citizen, you want to become a citizen, you have to take a test of basic English and 100 questions about American civics and history. But there's some people, either it's intellectual disability or dementia or something that cannot learn that material. And fortunately, the immigration department does have a form that can be filled out. If there's an evaluation by an attorney to indicate that someone has a diagnosis that interferes with their ability to learn that information, and then they can be excused from that. It's a big load off people's mind because some people can take many years trying to learn this information, and because of a disability, they just can't. And they really need the security and the services that someone might get as a citizen. So that's one of the cases. There are other cases, other situations that I deal with. First of all, someone who's seeking political asylum, someone who has had a terrible time in a foreign situation. They might be jailed and been tortured, and they're seeking a safe place in the United States. They might ask me for an evaluation to see if their presenting condition is consistent with their story of having been mistreated in their foreign country. Those are the abuse cases. There's another type of case that is legally is known as a VAWA case, Violence Against Women Act is the name of the act. And it basically creates a protection for battered and abused spouses. Um, when a spouse is an immigrant and they're being abused, and often they're being told by their abused U.S. citizen spouse, do as I say, I won't support your petition, to protect usually women, but also men in that situation. There is this law that if they convincingly show that they're being abused, then they can sponsor themselves, basically. And so courts, it's actually within the department, it's not really within the court system. The immigration department looks at reports that I write to see whether they're presenting conditions and the story is consistent as evaluated by the psychologist with the history that they present to the immigration department. A fourth one that I see commonly, I know this is a lot of information, but these are the things that I do in immigration. A fourth one that I do often is called a hardship case. When someone, for some sort of reason, often it's just a minor crime, something they've done wrong in the country, and they want to, or they might have even come here illegally, and they still have the chance of becoming a permanent resident. If there is a U.S. citizen that will be seriously presented with an extreme emotional hardship by this person being deported, the court will consider that, and I do a full psychological evaluation on the family to see how the family would be impacted. So those are the four situations in which I apply my expertise to immigration situations, and it's been helpful to hundreds, I dare say, maybe thousands of people over my career.
Wow. Thank you so much, Doctor, for all that you do. Personally, I had a chance to send you someone very close to me for one of your immigration evaluation, and it was absolutely a lifesaver because a lot of cases from immigration come from countries where psychology is not very developed, or is like a taboo. So a lot of cases go under the radar, and they
Mm,
just kind of, function in society, but always not properly. And when it comes to the civic test for immigration, like I become a natural citizen a couple of years ago, but I remember that, and I feel like I'm very a quick learner and pretty
yeah.
intelligent, fairly intelligent person. And it was a big challenge to learn all those questions, and is a various question, plus the stress of being interviewed by immigration officer. You really have to have your full capacity to be able to go to that process. So not everybody have the chance, sadly, especially talking about abuse and situations of this nature. It's very difficult to be able to be successful fully when we encounter certain trauma in life. So I mean, your impact in those things literally save lives, because those people can still be a breadwinner for the family. It's just that those challenges are very hard to overcome and to be fully functional citizens. So thank you so much for what you do. I also have a question, because I know that immigrant, as we talking, is different language. You Americans and you speak English. So how do you work? How do you handle the language barrier for your clients?
Well, that's been since I began immigration work 20 years ago. This has always been the case, and I work with translators. And fortunately, U.S. immigration is very liberal in terms of who they let be a translator. They'll accept anybody as a translator. It's often been a family member, but I've gotten very used to dealing with a lot of different languages. Don't test me, but I think I've learned some Spanish across the years by just listening to people doing the translations. And
Yes.
I just yeah, I've gotten very used to doing that, not only in terms of interviewing people, but even some of the psychological testing. I've modified it in such a way when needed to do it through translation, because sometimes there are languages that there's not even available translations to do the psychological testing. So I just have to modify the one I have to give people the testing they need.
Oh wow, thank you so much. I mean, you really go above and beyond for your clients, and it's so appreciated, because I have to learn English here when I came, and it was very hard in the beginning. I have to use services of translator as well, and
You're
I think
kidding me.
that.
Your English is so good.
Thank you so much. It was hard. I had to go to translators, and I was so frustrated sometimes, because I felt that, I'm like, this person said all that and you only translate like two words to me. I'm missing information. So I was like, I want to learn English. I had to learn English.
Uh-huh.
And thank God, I talk so much. I'm so social. So I was able to, have so many people helping me out, practicing my English. I'm reading in English, I'm writing in English, and I'm talking in English, and trying to do better. My French accent's still very thick, but I have more vocabulary. I'm working on my grammar. It's just.
Good.
Thank you. So I really appreciate that you do. And I personally saw that, you really have like this great office setup, and you have, a wonderful team also helping to the evaluation. Everybody is so sensitive, so passionate, so they have so much empathy and respect, and it's very great. I have a great feeling being in your office. So please keep up the good work.
Thank you so
I
much.
You are so welcome. I have one more question. I mean, couple more, but one of those is like, So we know that you are an approved forensic psychologist. I know that you also testify in court. But can you please share a few instances where a client would need to seek your services in the forensic psychologist area?
Right. I mean, so technically speaking, the immigration work is forensic too, but I mean, there are other situations. There's a wide variety. I think the most common one I've done in things that don't involve immigration is some sort of psychological damage that someone has received. For example, there was a case I worked on that very unfortunate. A young woman was pinned under a bus due to negligence on the part of the bus driver. And so she was sent to me to evaluate. She was saying that, due to the anxiety, post-traumatic reactions, that she could not function normally anymore. So yes, she could have, and she did have the doctor's evaluation of her physical function, but she needed an evaluation and a report that would be submitted in her case to substantiate that how much she was psychologically affected. That case, they might have settled because it just went to deposition, which the lawyers questioned me, and I submitted a report, but I didn't hear anything back from them for now close to 2 years, so maybe they settled it. But so that's an example when someone receives a psychological damage in a case. I can think of another example that I did years ago of someone that um, there was a claim that someone had taken advantage of someone of low intelligence in getting them to sign onto a mortgage that was really unfair terms and some that the person had been manipulated. So I testified in that case. It's to the person's intellectual function and to the circumstance of the case. So it really depends on the case, but anything where a psychologist could be questioned about the emotional effects of something or someone's mental capacity, how much intelligence they have to deal with the situation. Those are all relevant. And sometimes it's a report and sometimes it's actually testifying in the court.
Wow. Wow, we always thinking that psychologists only, go into counseling over some kind of trauma, but it's actually very complex and it's very vast. And it's interesting. I'm excited too because my daughter, she's studying psychology at Penn State. Um,
Wonderful.
yeah, she's got 3 more semester and we can celebrate. And
That's very exciting for you.
yeah, so that's also gonna be one of my questions because she wants to do like family rehabilitation by works a lot with children and like in foster care. So I also know that you also have a pretty great extensive and comprehensive psychoeducational assessment that you're doing. So what are the benefits for like a child in that department? What can you tell like a parents like what sign when we need to seek your services, when we need to what expectation we have once we actually get to schedule one of the services or this assessment with you? What's the outcome of it?
Okay, well, that's a two-part question, I think. And so the main thing is if a child is struggling in school, and for an extended period of time, um, and this often happens at certain transition points. The parent, like the child starts first grade when the reading is really supposed to be coming online, or child goes to middle school where, more is expected of them. But if for some reason the child is just not keeping up, not learning, or it might even be that the child seems to be oppositional and is just not cooperating with the homework assignments. If the parents have any concern that the child is not thriving in an academic situation, then this could make a huge difference for a child to do a psychoeducational evaluation. The purpose of a psychoeducational evaluation is to, in an objective way, measure the full range of the child's functioning. We do emotional measures. We do measures of attention, of something we call executive functioning, which is ability to be organized in how you solve problems and how you deal with your life tasks. We do measures of the academic function, their general intellectual function, and we basically see how the child processes information and solves problems. And it's usually a report of 15 to 20 pages. It's very detailed. And at the end, there are recommendations. There's a diagnosis, there's recommendations how to intervene to help the child with the problems that are identified. And a problem identified is halfway to a solution. So we identify that, we work with the parents so they can set up a program, we give referrals, and they can get their child back in the right track so the child is happy again, because there's nothing that makes a child happier, I think, than to feel like they're really performing well and, the gears are going in their mind. And it makes them feel terrible when they can't, fit in that way.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Doc. Don't laugh at me, but I'm African, and we usually we usually don't believe in psychology, right? We'd be like, I'm gonna spank you, I'm gonna do this to you because we and that's how we was raised. We weren't raised to let's talk about it. What's going on at school? Why you having a bad grade? Are you having a bad day? We get like boom, boom, left, right, and then we get threat into doing better. And I think like into the society and with you as parent, we have to be more open-minded and very proactive. Like we have to understand that a child is not voluntarily decide to fail in school or voluntarily decide to be
Yeah.
bad. It has to be an underlying condition going on, and I think that we need to be into this new style to kind of seek at least counseling assessment, reach out to you and just be like, my baby was doing great. He's in middle school now and he's really not doing well. I had to also do that with my son because when he went to middle school, he hate middle school and he developed a lot of stress and anxiety. Thanks God for him. I was already in America, so I didn't have to spank him. I seek counseling, and he's doing great right now. He's going for dual enrollment. It was a very terrible year, but I truly, I'm a firm believer of services like that you offer. That
That's
assessment,
great.
the psychoeducational assessment, is very important. At the same time, I want to ask you something. So as we do realize our children struggle, sometimes we feel like this is my child, I'm just going to send him to counseling. But I also know that you do group counseling, and I truly believe, because I had to do that too, that's why I'm asking the question, because I also want some clarification on that. The group counseling is beneficial for the family, or is it necessary to do like maybe a group counseling, or is it's not important, or it's just that is the one child problems, or in which instance you would advise, let's say like a group counseling, a family counseling?
Right, right. So yeah, we do call it family counseling because group counseling is actually unrelated individuals that come together to talk about their problems. But for family counseling, it can make a really big difference. There are different types of working with families. One way that's most common is I might see a child in therapy, but I also might reserve 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the session to talk privately with the parents. Because if you want a child to function well, you have to have a good plan, and they have to be on the same. Both parents should be on the same page, and that's what makes going to make things work the best. So that's one way for me to work with the family. But sometimes, and it depends on the age of the kid, I don't really see much value in family counseling for younger children. But once they get their own voice and they have their own things that they're on their mind and things that not think that they think aren't working in the home. And they can speak up to that in the preteen and teenage years, then getting everybody together and keeping the tempers down so we can keep dialogue going and it just doesn't turn into you can't talk to me that way, and slap or whatever. That's not communication. It might be discipline, but
Yeah.
I mean, actually, what I wanted to say to you when you were talking about, the slap on the backside is, you know, um, discipline and punishment has its place, but I would say, first of all, we have to always be aware of when discipline becomes abuse. That's its own concern. But even not going there. Let's say a parent has, they know the limits. There are two problems with punishment. One problem with punishment is kids get used to it. And so the
Mm,
parent has to keep on punishing more and more and more to get the same effect. The other problem with punishment is it shows a kid what you don't want them to do. But if you want them to enthusiastically do something, there has to be two things, either a reward or, even more importantly, that relationship with the parents, that they're connecting, that there's a warm feeling between them. And that's where family counseling can reestablish that, and it can make a big difference.
mm. Wow, thank you so much for that. And also, so I'm glad, like, when you mentioned about family counseling, because it's almost kind of like also educating the parents, like how to deal with the children, when it comes to that. Like you say about, you mentioned communication, and I feel like, to me, counseling has really helped me to be able to appreciate my kids the way they are,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the frustration really was coming from how I perceived them. It was not really something they were doing. So going
Mm-hmm.
to counseling made me realize that maybe the problem was within me.
Mm-hmm.
How, through society or through my perspective, I expected my kids to be this way, do this way, function that way, but they have their own personality that I have to respect. Like you say, yes, we can discipline, yes, it's about education, but at the same time, they're human. We training them to become the future adult. So
Absolutely,
sometimes
absolutely.
talk,
So,
down to them is not really building the confidence they need. So for me,
yeah.
counseling did that.
That's
um,
great. I have two rules about discipline.
mhm.
One rule is a parent should never discipline if they're angry, because
Mm,
that's when it becomes excessive. The
wow,
other
that's good.
the other rule about physical discipline is God made a place for us to slap if we do, and it's in the backside, where it's padded, open hand, and it's not like you want to cause maximal pain. You just,
Hmm.
make a point.
Make a
But
point, yes.
those are my personal rules of punishment.
Yeah,
And
I believe in that.
the other thing is to remember that punishment doesn't have to be physical. You can take away
Mm,
a privilege, et cetera, et cetera.
mm. Yeah, that's why we have to go to therapy so we can learn those things. So also, so Dr. Milgram, I have another question. So as we talking about, culture, and then we talking about, psychology. So I know that, like, you do have a lot of, like, immigration clients, immigrant clients, where after you do the psychological evaluation, I want to know, like, do you have any program, like, do you have them moving forward with the integration? And I'm asking the question also because of, in a lot of, foreign culture, counseling is perceived as a weakness, and people tend to avoid, facing the mental issue. So once they get diagnosed with a situation, do you have any educational program to assist them, with the realization of their needs, like for therapy? Like, how can you help them to say, okay, I did your assessment. We know what's wrong with you now. And after that, what happened?
Yeah, so I don't have any specific educational programs. I think what has been most educational for the immigrants that I've worked with, particularly immigrants who have little experience with psychology and counseling, is in telling me their story, in being in a room with a person that is attuned to them and interested in hearing their story and kind to them. I think that itself is an educational program, because many people, especially those who have um, trauma reactions based to circumstances and abuse they received in the foreign country. Many people, this might be the first time they're telling this story. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of hurt connected to it, but after tell the story, they say they feel some relief. And that itself is an experience that they have, that they realize that it's helpful to share their suffering. And for a lot of people, that has made a difference to make them seek out counseling.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I'm hoping and I'm praying for more people to be open to this. It's not easy to talk about our trauma and seek help, but again, you are the right person to go to because you are a professional. It's different if I talk to my aunt, I talk to my best friend, I talk to this person, but they can really help me. They can listen to me maybe,
Mhm,
but you are actually the person that will help me go through it and out of it.
mhm.
Um, so based on that too, I know I took a lot of your time, but I would really like for you to talk a little bit about your books. You are a wonderful author, and it's such an honor again to have you because you are not just you know giving the treatment or doing the assessment. You literally go above and beyond. You're trying to reach out to people, and you really are here to help people going, walk with the trauma, and then heal from it. So you wrote about the integration of psychology and spirituality, which is a very sensitive subject that you bring. So two of your book, one is Never Forget My Soul and Reaching Open. Also, was it the two that I was able to catch up on? They definitely caught my attention. And I know you also wrote a lot of published article in the national and regional medical periodicals. So that people need to look for those because you put a lot of valuable information as well. But I would like to talk about Never Forget My Soul because you literally describe how trauma is healed. And my understanding of your book that he show how the outcome of how lives are part of our heritage, like based on how our upbringings, how we was raised, who raised us, and things was into us, pull into us. But you also smoothly the subject of theology with a lot of tact and sensitivity, which I really appreciate. Um, while you still again delivering a human touch with the actors. Like I love the actors that you select for your book because they also been to the struggle, and they're sharing the process, how they get in, how they went through, and how they escape. So what I encourage everybody to read those two books. I also would like for us to please share what inspired you to write this book.
Well, my first book, Never Forget My Soul, is a exploration of multi-generational trauma. It's the trauma that sometimes is so extreme that the children get affected by it, and even the grandchildren get affected by certain patterns of post-traumatic stress disorder that it changes someone's life view and their feelings of safety and self-protection and how they see the world and how they see themselves in the world. Um, and so my interest in Never Forget My Soul was to look at the Holocaust and its related trauma and the generations afterwards. And knowing, being Jewish myself and knowing the deep spiritual heritage of the Jewish people, there's this confrontation of the evil and the darkness of the world with seeking God's light. And so I used the vehicle of a therapy group in the book to explore what happens. It just happens by chance in my story that two people that come from these Holocaust affected families show up in this group. What if they confront each other with their different ways of coping with their trauma and the trauma in their history? And what if both of them, being Jewish, reconnect with their spiritual heritage and find ways to trust in life and God's guidance again all through the story? And so that's what I wanted to explore. I think in some ways it's been a theme of my own life, grappling with those issues. So that was Never Forget My Soul. Written Upon Our Souls is a very different project. It basically it's based on my reading of the Bible and other Jewish sources, and themes from the Jewish tradition that I drew from it, life lessons, I would say, and essays about different things that we can draw from the stories of the patriarchs, the matriarchs, and other important figures in the beginning of the Bible. Um, So that's that one. And I would just want to add that I've just had my newest volume out. It's a book of poetry. It's called To
Ooh.
Seek a Larger Spirit, and
Mhm.
it's available on Amazon. So yeah, I've been a lifelong lover of poetry as well. So that's my collection of my poems.
Oh wow, I cannot wait to get that. I will definitely get it after we're done talking. So you know, it's this interview is so it's kind of reach so close to my life. When I first moved to the US, the family that kind of adopted me um was also it was a Jewish lady and also a victim of the Holocaust. So it was so weird to me because I learned that at school, but I for some unknown reason I was thinking, that was a long time ago. Those people are probably dead, and all of them, and see like the number on her arm. um
Mhm.
it was very how am I put that, it was a rough reality. Like it,
Yes.
it was, like even when we talk about slavery, being African, like I was born, my mother was never a slave, my grandma was never a slave, and they was born in 1920. So even being in Africa, we never really seen that. Like I never experienced that slavery things or that abuse from my specific family. I was blessed and fortunate that my grandparent was raised by a Catholic priest, so they never had to be chained up in the plantation and things like this. They was able to learn how to write and read. We have doctors in our family. We got pretty important
Mhm.
people that was able to study in Howard University. You talk about
Mhm.
1970s, when slavery was still ongoing in a lot of places. Um, but with the Holocaust, for some unknown reason, I was so convinced that it was so far away, and everybody was done with this, and seeing a person, real person, like she literally taught me how to bake my turkey for Thanksgiving. So I'm a very good Thanksgiving cook. And she was an excellent cook. She taught me so much, but I was looking at her life and I can clearly see the damage. Um that she went through. She's a wonderful person. She's still alive. She's still wonderful, but it was just that, like you said, the trauma is real. Um so your book, and I could see also like a lot of review of people was really able to mirror a lot of your actors, and they was able to find some type of relief, because sometimes you want people to at least understand what you've been through, at least admit what you've been through. It's like almost like I it's like if nobody really believed you, it's so hard to even move forward. But your book is revealing, okay, this is something that did happen, and this is how those people was affected with this. But and again, it's hope today. We can walk through it. We can make it happen. You can get out of it. Of course, we're never gonna forget. Of course, we're never gonna undermine what you've been through, but is a light at the end of the tunnel. So this book is good for anybody personally, because even like I said, I never been to Africa, but being an African person in society nowadays, sometimes people will remind you your race, people will remind you your history, remind you where you came from, and sometimes you may be affected by it. You may feel like it's so unfair, I'm not getting the same privilege as this and that person. So but at the same time, again, it's how you process everything that you're enduring. So I really, really encourage people to read this book, because he's a big eye opener, but you also offer a lot of, solutions, as different direction to move through this. So I think I'm not gonna say a lot about it. They want to know, they have to read it. And I cannot wait to read your poetry book. So Dr. Migram, again, I appreciate you was here. I still want to ask you one more thing.
Go ahead.
Um, so 2025 is fast approaching. The reason why mentioned that is because as we talking about family and struggle and challenges and families and friends during the holidays, they can be very stressful because sometimes it's people that you haven't seen for months and years. So they're not really, up to date with your life. And once they catch up with you right there at dinner, they put you in position sometimes so uncomfortable. Like they want to know about everything, like, your last relationship that probably didn't work. You don't want to talk about it, probably because you have some trauma going through it. They ask you about the business you just failed. And so do you have any advice for us, how to move through with the anxiety and the stress of the holidays?
That's a big one because yes, the stress is there, and the sad truth is for a lot of people, it's a depressing time. And I think one of the reasons it's depressing is because people have unfinished business with their family. And so they come back to that, and whether it's a sibling rivalry or whatever, they have to face that unfinished business. So my advice is twofold. First of all, my advice is one word that a psychologists always talk about. The word is boundaries. It's you don't have to tell everybody everything. And depending on your audience and how kind or not they're going to be, there's certain subjects you just don't have to steer into. And if they ask you about, well, what's going on with that failed relationship, you can say, I don't really want to get into that. Did you hear about that sports team, what they did last week, or whatever. You don't have to answer every question. So that's number one. And it's very important in families that people respect each other's boundaries. And um, so that's the first thing to consider. The second thing is it's all a matter of your perspective, the glass half full, half empty. Um, think about if your family were just disappeared.
Mhm.
Think about what you appreciate in them, um, and think about enjoying and embracing the good parts of that time that you have together. And that annoying uncle that is always pointing out that, you have food on the side of your face or whatever. Okay, that's what makes him happy. Just try not to let it get you down, and, turn to someone that cheers you up more, I think is the better idea.
I agree. I totally agree, Dr. Miriam. Luckily for me, I'm the type of person I don't bite my tongue. I like to let it out. So, people kind of know that about me. So they approach me differently. As much
Uh-huh.
as I like to share stuff, but like you say, I really create my boundaries. And if you cross them, I would tell you, hey, you going too far. Let's not do that today. And I think people need to learn, have a little bit of, red flag they can lift it up, but like not right now, not this, not that, just so they can keep their peace.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
yeah. So, Dr. Milgram, this was my last question, but I want to remind people. So, Dr. Milgram is a licensed psychologist who has been in practice for over 20 years, even if he looks like he's 20. you know so he absolutely strives to create a professional environment that meets clients individual needs, so based on whatever problem they present and concern. He also have an extensive experience working with people from diverse ethnic and cultural background. And again, if you need, whatever language that you speak, it will adapt, the assessment to make sure you are comfortable and make sure you understand and make sure you can successfully get the proper assessment based on your situation. He also author, that we wrote about the integration, psychology and spirituality. He has a couple of books published out there, most all of them actually on Amazon. So you can just Google his name, Dr. Michael Milgraum, and you will see his books out there. He has his new poetry book that is out, so I don't have that one. I'm gonna get that one. Um, Now, Dr. Milgram, you are in the Maryland area. If we want to reach out to you, how can we make an appointment with you? How can we request an assessment from you and your associates?
It's not hard. Just put in the name Michael Milgram, Milgraum. It's an unusual spelling for that name, and my website will come up. I'm in Kensington, Maryland, so seek me out and I'll be happy to help you.
Thank you so much. And I will also post all your information in your website, the phone number of the office. So if you guys reach out to Dr. Milgram, they very good. If they're busy doing assessment, leave a voicemail. They will call you back. You can send them an email. They're also very, very reactive and they communicate very well. So Dr. Milgram, okay, it was an absolute honor to have you on this platform tonight.
The honor
Thank
was
you
all
so
mine,
much.
Muna. The honor was all mine.
Thank you. So we are going to leave tonight. Thank you for being on the Force Factor podcast. And again, I will always make sure to bring you the best of the best out here. You know, like we have Dr. Milgram tonight, and we are saying good night to you guys. Thank you, Dr. Milgram.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.